Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Archon Pyro guide. Now in this guide I'm going to be talking really quickly over the spec and how to play it. It is a very easy spec. You only need a couple of fingers to play this spec. So if you played that game with maybe, I don't know, the big knife or the scissors where, you put them between your fingers and you're doing that really fast and maybe you lost a couple of fingers, you'll still be able to play this spec. Good news for you, buddy. Anyway, starting off, let's get the spec open. Soul trees. So the point spread is 40 Archon, 36 Pyromancer. I could talk about this soul build and why points are where for about 5 minutes, but that wouldn't be too much use to you or me. If you have any questions or question the build for whatever reason, feel free to ask Jiggy, because he made the build in the first place. And he is a really good mage. So, yeah, this is the build. It's very sort of simple. There are a few things that you can change around. You can get Flicker by taking out one in Wildfire, but obviously that will result in a very slight DPS loss. But if you feel you need Flicker to move out of AoEs quicker or just get around, then, feel free to do that point shuffle. But apart from that, you shouldn't need to change anything around with the build, or else it will just be a bit pointless on your behalf, really. So anyway, this spec is played with a number of buffs and macros. So I'm just going to go on to the buffs that you want to have up. So you have your sort of long-term lasting buffs, which are on the right-hand side of my screen, which are Pyromancer's Armor, Glyphs of Power, Flaring Intellect, which will probably be overwritten in a raid environment, and Lightning Charge. And they're the 4 buffs that you want to have, and you only need to worry about them once every hour. Now, there are 3 buffs, also known as Archon Auras, that you have to manually refresh every 5 minutes. And these are down at the bottom. They're Arcane Aegis, Shed Vigor, and Vitality of Stone. Now, these actually debuff you on the actual buffs themselves, but due to talent points, they'll actually make you cast a lot faster, deal more damage, and quite a few other things. And this is mainly, well, these buffs debuffing you, they also buff your party members. So this build is mainly used for support and DPS. But the DPS this build pulls out is absolutely insane compared to pretty much any other support build. And I'm going to run you through it, and it's really easy to do. So basically, you kind of have, once you got all those buffs up, you're pretty much ready to start combat. Now, your job as the Pyro Archon is kind of the support role. So you want to be looking at ways that you can buff other people and increase their damage, while also in this build pulling out quite a bit of damage from yourself. So when you initially enter combat, it really depends on your raid environment and who else is supporting. Maybe you'll have another bard. I wouldn't recommend running this build with a Beastmaster because it'll just be wasted stuff. So assume you have a bard. Usually you'll want to use Crumbling Resistance and Ashen Defense. Now these increase the amount of physical and magical damage the target takes for 5 minutes, so you only need to apply those once every 5 minutes, and they'll also give you a buff increasing your resistance and armor, which is pretty cool. The other buff that you can possibly put up is Illuminate, which means whenever the target gets attacked, it takes a bit of extra damage from Illuminate. This isn't usually used by yourself though, just due to the fact that it only has a 20-second duration, and the Bard one has a 60-second duration, so it's usually a lot better to have the Bard put up this type of debuff. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of standard support stuff aside. Now the actual build itself just relies on spamming really one macro, while also looking out for the fight. So let's just reset the parser so you can have an idea of what it does. So you have the standard spam macro that you apply, and you also have cooldowns. You'll also want to put an ability called Cinderburst on a separate key and hit that whenever it pops up due to your Pyromancer's armor. Now, it's kind of just, spam this one macro, which I'll link in the comments of this video so you can copy it. And when you're ready to sort of start pushing out some mega deeps, ideally when you hit 100 power, you can pop Flaring Power and also Heatwave, and then you can just start mashing your Heatwave macro. Now the Heatwave macro is very slightly different to the normal macro, as it doesn't have any Earth abilities in, which, because the Earth abilities don't benefit from the casting speed buff that Heatwave gives you. So it's fairly straightforward. You can see on the damage meter in my gear, which is alright. My gear on my mage isn't terribly good, but it's adequate for T1 rating. Not quite T2 rating yet, so I'm doing about 15k sustained, and with sort of a bit more gear. I mean, I've seen mages sort of pull about 22k in this spec in high-end gear, and with fresh 50 gear, you should be able to pull about 10k in a very, very easy to do spec. I mean, you know, all I'm doing is spamming the number 2 button here. I've got abilities on separate keys, but that's just for my sort of personal use. So yeah, it's very easy, guys. You spam the macro, you keep your auras up, and you have a whale of a time, because it's pretty cool, this spec. Anyways, guys, that is it for the spec. I'm going to attach a couple of videos of me actually playing the spec in dungeons and talk you through this. So, I'll just go on to that now. Cheers. Told you guys I would attach the video. Anyway, so as you can see here, I was a bit late on getting my auras up, but I managed to get them up and debuff the boss, ready for sort of the other group members. And I'm going to quickly sort of just attack the boss, put up a bit of charge, get to 100 as soon as possible, and then pop Flare and Power. Quickly going to throw down a lava field to increase the damage further of all my party members, so they can zerg down the boss very, very quickly. As you can see, you know, with all the buffs that I'm providing to them from my various debuffs, buffs, auras, etc. You know, they're really getting a sizable DPS increase, which allows us to have really good kills like that. Now, just as a bit of a, you know, disclaimer, I'm probably not the best guy at this spec, but what I do is adequate enough, and it's a lot better than most people at random dungeons do. So yeah, just quickly having a look at one of the bosses in the Realm of the Twisted Dreams. As you can see, you know, put the debuffs up, and then start spamming the old macro, and you're off to pretty good start. You know, put lava field down, try and hit the boss of it and stand in it, and that's all you need to do, really. Keep an eye out for those cinder burst procs and hit them ideally as soon as they come up for some really, really hefty damage. And another sort of pro tip is, as soon as the boss gets below 40%, manually hit Inferno. This is a DPS increase, but you don't want to include it in your macro due to macro lag, because there's some complicated nerd thing, which, again, you know, I do suck at computers. I regularly remind people of that, but basically it results in a DPS loss because it has to process if the target's below 40% or not. But yeah, apart from that, guys, if you have any comments, questions, things to add on to this guide, just anything else, leave them in the comments below, and I'll try and include the little pop-up or anything else that you may have. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and you take care of yourselves, you savvy, attractive subscribers of my channel. You know the kind, you know, kind of attractive people that subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. They are very attractive and savvy. Have a good one, guys.